Today, Living the Classical Life travels to the Rosendal Chamber Music Festival in Norway, A 17th century coastal village stunning in its beauty, forged by glaciers and carved with fjords between jagged mountains, and constantly flowing with wild waterfalls and streams as a backdrop for an intense yet intimate festival founded by pianist Leif Ove Ansnes. The setting today was the Baronet Rosendal, an estate that added sprawling romantic gardens in the mid-19th century. It was here that we caught up with saxophonist and composer Marius Neset between rehearsals and performances. His reflections were to me as stunning as his music. Marius, thank you so much for being on the show, Living the Classical Life. So I've not actually really had a conversation that involves specifically a jazz musician or even a saxophonist on this show, and I'm curious to know how these worlds are intersecting. And I think there is a lot of overlap and of course the differences, but really excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, me too, and it's very, very interesting to talk about that, especially when you are working in both places.
So I'm trying to figure out, well, I have a few friends who do play saxophone, but never really sort of tried to figure out their world, but I'm trying to find where my background as a classical pianist might overlap with yours. So, for example, my training always felt like, okay, yes, learn the technique on the instrument, yes, learn lots of repertoire, but really kind of follow the rules and you're recreating something. The sense that I have for jazz musicians, whom I envy tremendously, is that you have a different opportunity to really make music and be super flexible with it.
That's a very good description of it, and in a good and bad way. I think it's a lot of pressure to always feel that you have to create. I think both when composing and improvising, you always feel you should go for something, searching for something different than what you did last time, which sometimes can be very exhausting. I mean, it's very fascinating to see how different the really great classical soloists are performing the same piece. It's the same music, the same tones, the same ideas, just some very small changes. You don't, I mean, and I'm trying to maybe capture, you know, to maybe take some of that way, that approach of playing into my improvising, so that I don't kind of feel that I'm going to reinvent the whole jazz story every time I play, but more maybe some few small little details I could do a bit different, and that can. But because I think as a musician, you need to always try to see if you can develop things. You can never stop. You have to. So that's very fascinating to me when working with classical musicians.
I was so interested with what you said about this feeling of pressure, because this is one of the subjects that I've liked to examine with the guests here, because we feel certain types of pressure with maybe the industry and having to prove ourselves, but also to find a voice for ourselves. I didn't imagine, for example, that you would feel a pressure in having to come up with something new. I admired that as sort of, say, I thought of that as a sense of freedom, whereas I felt like always following, say, in this case, a Beethoven score, you just simply have to get it right, and then to also feel like you can be free within that would be that's for me a huge challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the people watching this and who don't know, what percentage of the music that you play is actually fully notated, and what percentage is what happens in the moment?
It depends very much on who I'm writing for. This piece that we're going to play today, Who We Are, is almost everything is notated. I'm doing a few improvisations, but mostly it's notated for me as well. But the piece, or at least part of the pieces, comes from very spontaneous improvise, and it's very often the ideas to my music can come from, if I played a gig the other day and what did I do there, or what did someone else do, and just those 2 bars or something, I found that was very interesting. Maybe take those and try to develop it a bit more. Or for example, the piece we played yesterday, A Day in the Sparrow's Life. That was, everything was an improvisation that I had recorded it, I went back, transcribed it, and of course went into the details and changed it to what's called, get it more, the shape of it better, but it was mainly an improvisation. But then there was no improvisation when I play the piece, and it's very different when I play that kind of piece. I feel, in a way, I feel less exhausted mentally exhausted after the concert than if I have to go on stage and, playing from zero and feel that you have to, and if you feel very inspired on the floor, it's the most amazing feeling. But it's not necessarily always like that. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the process of, if we want to call it the process of improvisation, because I would say that of my classically trained colleagues, not that many that I know of are doing improvisation on a regular basis. I have witnessed some do this. Arkady Volodos among pianists, Martha Argerich, I heard her do some things, and Sergei Babayan. I've heard these pianists, they can pick something up and then suddenly start to play along with it. They have that kind of ear. With you, how did improvisation enter the picture? I know you come from a musical family. Was this just something that you did on a regular basis? Is this just part of your day, like okay, let's have breakfast and coffee and let's improvise a little bit?
Yes, I have been improvising my whole life, since I was, 4 years old. I have been, that is always, I think there was something from the beginning when I started to play music, this need to create something in the moment. That's always been a big part of me. It's a language that takes many years to learn. You have to, of course, most important of all, develop your ears. You need to be able to hear what's going on, which chords are the pianist playing, what is the bassist doing, is it playing some alternative bass lines, or maybe there's going on some very polyrhythmic stuff like 5-grouped 8 notes or quintuplets or whatever is going on. And you need to always, in the beginning you will try maybe to go with it, but then when you reach the next level you will do the opposite, because that's too banal, and that's how it develops and develops. And you need to learn the basic jazz harmonies, and then the more advanced kind of chord structures, of course scales, the basic diatonic scales to play over the chords, and then you gradually more advanced scales, and pentatonic scales, arpeggios, etc., etc. You start how to develop a rhythmic motif. Very easy first. You can play 4/3. You can play, and then you develop it more to 13/7 and or divide it into different groupings, etc., etc. And in the end, when you go on stage, you don't think about that at all.
Huh.
It's only, to me, it's only about the shape of the whole gig. It's only about the story you want to tell to the listener. But these are tools when you're in the practice rooms that you have to go through, and it takes many years. It's like learning a language.
But is improvisation ever completely just a stream of consciousness in the moment, or is there usually just a few basic ideas or concepts or structure that you can put into place? Have you ever gone onto stage where you just say, let's see what happens, and absolutely no plan?
Yes, definitely. I mean, that question is, it depends on who you ask, I think, a lot. And I know many jazz musicians that would, don't even want to talk more to you if you want to plan. If you want to plan a few ideas in the improvisation, everything should be in the moment. But then other musicians are more like, they like to have a plan, a shape of it, and it's still improvising, but you know where you're going to reach, and it's different approaches, and I don't think any is right or wrong. I'm playing with different musicians, and I have done that, as you said, gone on stage, don't agree about anything. We don't know what's happening. If it works, it can be amazing. If it don't work, it can be not so fun to listen to.
But since I've never done this on stage, I'm trying to picture what this feels like to improvise in front of an audience. Is it basically a process where you look inwards and it's contained within yourself, or are you also kind of drawing on what's happening in the moment as performance art? I mean, I'm really just thinking of your composition that I just heard yesterday with Morning Mist, where you literally started at the back of the church and then you started walking. I think part of the interest in this was that not everyone realized right away that it had started.
No.
And so then people settled, and then it draws the attention. So for you as the performer, probably you tune into these energies as well. Of course, that's not an improvisation at that point. But when you're improvising, do you take these vibes from the hall?
Yeah, it actually was that specific thing was improvised in a way that I stood back and I thought that maybe it could be a good idea to play so soft that only a few people will hear it, and then gradually more and more that could. I was not sure if it would work, but I found that naturally to do in the moment. So yes, definitely capturing the energy and atmosphere and the vibe in the room is a big part of it, and that's why it's very hard to rehearse that kind of music alone in a practice room. You can't really create. You can't really create the same. The same. I don't know. The same spirit of. I mean, it's not going to be the same without the audience, the room, the atmosphere, everything. It makes a so big difference.
I'm trying to get a sense of your musical and artistic voice. So I've read that some of your early influences or experiences with music involved jazz and pop and rock and Grieg, and then you also mentioned kind of the silence of the beautiful scenery around here. So what I'm trying to get a sense of is, do you really kind of have to be a master of all styles to find your particular voice?
No. I'm definitely not a master of all styles. I think finding your own voice, to me, that is something that happens naturally. It's nothing that I'm not searching very strongly for, I have to find my own voice. To me, it's history of music is a very big part of it. I love music, and I love the history of how it has developed, and I love to see how jazz musicians today are using the same kind of harmonies, some of the same that Grieg did in his time, and to see the parallels of to see how the contemporary, or like the 20th century classical music harmonies, how early they were so much earlier than the jazz musicians, composing and playing really advanced harmonic progressions. Be careful what I say now, but that's how I feel it when I listen to Messiaen, for example. The harmonies going on in Turangalila's symphony is just incredible. It's something that would be so hip in every jazz setting, and I have listened a lot to really much music from the classical background, and also, of course, where I come from, the jazz, and a lot of funk, R&B, rock music, everything from the Beatles to Beethoven.
Yeah.
So, and I've been working a lot with the music to, very structured, but also working a lot just playing by ear. I also played lots of concerts, and of course doing the tone exercises, doing the scale exercise. Of course, every time I practice. But I think this thing is in the total of this is what creates your own sound. And it's very hard to just go for, I have to find my own sound. It comes gradually, I think. And of course, there is something from your childhood that will always be there. There is some music my parents played for me when I was a kid that's always been in me for some reason. And also where I am from. There are I can hear some Grieg in most of what I do, even if even it can be very hidden. It's where I am from, and I've found it very nice to add something that is kind of describing where you come from. It's very nice.
Here we have this unique opportunity to film in Norway. I'm here for the first time, as I mentioned to you, and the beauty and the specific landscape is so different from anything that I've seen. And you mentioned that this factors into your entire being.
Yes, I have been growing up in environments like this, and I have been walking a lot in the mountains. It's a very big part of me. So when I lived in Copenhagen for many years, that was I loved that kind of contrast. I still had the possibility to always go home in the mountains, just surrounded by this, being for myself, composing, practicing, listening to music, whatever. And then I lived in a big city with a city life, and I always had that contrast. And I have a feeling that has affected my music in some way. My music is very, there are very much contrasts in it. I love to use contrast as an effect in music.
Let's talk about the piece that was the commission here at the festival, Who We Are. What's the idea behind this? What's the story?
I first met Leif Ove in early 2018, I think, where I made a special arrangement of one of my songs, Prax Ballet, for him and me and a cello. It was really nice. And after that, Leif Ove asked me if I would like to compose a piece for this festival. And I was, of course, very honored to be asked by him. And it was, I knew it was going to be a Beethoven celebration, and we talked a bit about maybe it could be fun to use some of the Beethoven harmonies or melodies as an inspiration. So what I actually did was I was listening a lot to the second movement of his Seventh Symphony. Yeah, and I was thinking maybe I could use this to compose something. And Leif Ove actually suggested that to me, I did so, and it turned out it ended up with being something completely different. You would never hear that in the, but it's fun how that piece would probably not sound like it did if I didn't go from there. So that's how it started, and then I had started to compose on the piece, and I was writing, and then the whole COVID-19 came and the lockdown, and that changed everything. The festival was cancelled. I had some weeks where I just couldn't compose. I think everyone was very shocked, and it was very strange. And then the direction of the piece changed somehow, talking about that the surroundings and the atmosphere around you affect you, what you're doing in music. That happened there as well. It's a lot to do with the title of the piece, and I'm very much looking forward to finally premiere the piece for an audience.
Yeah, this is absolutely fantastic. So I know that your January 22 album was performed by the Bergen Philharmonic. One of my favorite subjects to talk about is confidence in what we do. Did you? Okay, so you're having your compositions played by the major ensemble. When that first happens, do you feel like, okay, is my work good enough? Did I consider everything that I could have?
To me, it was something I always dreamed about to do. Composing a saxophone concerto for a symphony orchestra and myself. That's a dream come true. And I had been working for some years with smaller chamber orchestras like London Sinfonietta and some other ones. I also had done something with Norwegian Radio Orchestra. But I had always had a rhythm section, a jazz rhythm section, drums and bass and probably piano with me. So Man-Made, which is a saxophone concerto, was the first time I did something completely alone with a symphony orchestra. And of course it was amazing to be able to do it. It was also scary. It was everything at the same time. But that's how I am. That's what I like. And I think I need to go outside the comfort zone. I think that's very important. And I was working really hard for a long time on that piece. That also started with some improvisation thing on saxophone that turned out to be the major idea for the whole piece. It's very different from everything else I've done. I found it very. My biggest challenge was how to use the orchestra, to use the sound, all the possible sound possibilities in the orchestra. That's kind of, and I asked some different people as well to what do you think about this? What do you think about this? That I trusted, and it gradually went better and better. And I think I was very happy with the result. Being on stage with them playing that kind of music was very challenging as well, because I'm not used to this 80 meters or whatever to some of the people in the orchestra. So it was definitely a new experience to me. I love to do it, and I love the orchestra.
Yeah. How about the reception of music? So I know that you have experience with music that kind of bridges the genres. I don't know how it is here in Norway or in Europe more in general. In America right now there's a lot of discussion about music, classical music, making it more accessible, more approachable. Sometimes people feel put off by the elitism of what it is. Do you feel like jazz music, or that tradition somewhat related to it, is inherently a little bit more open than classical music, where a lot of people feel like they need a lot of background to understand it?
I don't know if I feel it like that. Some of the jazz music, maybe some of the jazz music that's based on very clean, straight triad harmonies, which is you often hear in pop music, can appellate quite easy to really many people. But there are also, you also find that harmonies in classical music.
I guess I'm trying to get at this sense of maybe even vice versa. So let's say you're playing a jazz piece in front of an audience that's expecting a mostly classical program. What's their reaction to that? Are they open to that?
In my experience, they are. I mean, yesterday I played something that I was very curious before I played. Is this going to fit in this program, mainly consisting of Beethoven? And I'm coming here playing something completely different, and it's very jazzy in a way. And the reaction was great.
Yeah,
so
I was there.
From that experience, I have to say yes, but I guess it depends on. I believe that really great musicians and good music, if you can tell a story, what it's all about. It is about, in the end, it's about telling a story that will in some way touch the listener. To me, if that is played, if that is Mozart or Beethoven or some jazz musician today or whoever it is, it doesn't matter. That's what it's all about, and I think the audience will feel that pretty much. That's my experience. Whoever, as long as the audience is interested in music, it's my belief, but I might be wrong.
Marius, you come from a musical family, and I have some colleagues who say that coming from a musical family makes certain things infinitely easier in the development. So if for example, for me as a pianist, if I had pianists as parents, then I would already by osmosis understand a little bit about what it's like to live and breathe on stage. Did having a musical family as you do, did that make things easier for you, do you feel?
Yeah, definitely. It meant everything. I mean, and we had piano, and we had guitars, we had a drum set, and I could play a bit of everything when I was very young because it was available, and I was curious and tried different things. And my parents were very musical. My dad taught me basic groove on the drum set from I was probably 6 years or something, and I learned basic harmonies on piano, guitar chords. So getting that from a very early age, and maybe most important, starting on a very early age, making music by using your ears, is probably very a great thing to take with you in the rest of your life.
It seems like that's a more intuitive way of making music as opposed to, say, me. I did not come from a musical family. I had parents who studied music at some point, and we certainly appreciated music in the house, but I really had to figure things out more. So it felt like, whereas you maybe had a more intuitive background, then that felt natural, that felt like more of a language. For me, it was about something that I was specifically learning and always following some rules.
Yeah, it was a bit different. I mean, I didn't read music before some years later. I learned everything on ear, and started to read music first when I was probably 11, 12 years old. So it's a bit different way getting into it, I guess.
So at this point in your musical life, you've had a number of albums that you've recorded. You've premiered compositions. You've performed in various places. What's your hope in moving forward with your further projects?
That's a good question. I still have recorded 3 albums now that's not released yet. It's coming. And I don't want to rush what's my next project, because I feel, now I have done very much different stuff. I've done very many things that I was dreaming about doing. Everything from making a solo album. I have been making small group jazz albums, big band albums, chamber orchestras, symphony orchestras. I have done the whole range within that, and I want to not rush what's my next project to do. It somehow should come naturally. Of course, these kind of things that I've been doing here in Rosendal, and specifically who we are, that's very interesting to me, because when we started rehearsing that again and some days ago, I was thinking this is very different from everything else I've done. It's both the composition, the shape of it, and the harmonies, and I don't know what. It's just interesting. It's very different from my other stuff.
Yeah.
So I would love to do more in that direction in the future. And
finally, what's inspiring you these days, whether it be in music or just in life?
It's very easy to answer that, because I just became a dad, a father, and for the second time actually. So now I have 2 daughters, 2 years and 2 months, and it's impossible not being very inspired. They give me so much energy, and it's very natural at this point in life. That's kind of my big inspiration in life. In music, it's everything I hear. It's this weekend, so many amazing musicians, amazing music. You're getting new ideas, everything you hear, stuff, and play. So I think everything around you inspires you.
Marius, thank you so much for being on the show. It was such a pleasure to speak with you about you and your musical life, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more of your compositions and your performances. So best wishes and thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Oh, it actually landed in your hair. Yeah. This butterfly is sitting here. No, that's, yeah, it is there. That's so great.
Don't move.
Yeah.
Don't move.